while they're going through all of those things, and right now, today, that number is about 13,000 of our veterans. Okay, about 13,000 of the 135,000 veterans we support, about 10% are on earning loss benefit and support going through voc rehab and going through treatment. So for this group, in response to all of the feedback, we're going to try to make it simpler by consolidating all of these benefits that we currently have. And we're going to take 6 benefits, smack them in together to make one. So rather than having 6 different forms, 6 different bureaucracies, 6 different systems, we're just going to smack them into one. And they are earning loss benefit on a short term, earning loss benefit long term. The career impact allowance, the career impact allowance supplement, the retirement income security benefit, and the supplementary retirement benefit. That's an exam question, okay? We're going to take all 6 of those, we're going to smack them together as of 1 April 19. For those who are currently on ELB and so on, we're going to grandfather the amount that they are making, and they will be protected, and that amount will be indexed into the future until the new system overtakes where they are. So we're going to take all of those 6, we're going to smack them together to create the income replacement benefit, the IRB. That amount will be indexed according to the Consumer Price Index. If the soldier, sailor, airman, and woman served less than 20 years and under the age of 65, we'll include a career progression factor, especially for those folks who were hurt when they were privates and corporals or officer cadets, and they had a pretty low level. We're going to ensure that there's a career progression factor because the average career length is about 20 years of service. In addition to that, especially for folks who got hurt, again, while they were junior ranks, and also who were reservists when they got hurt, we're going to create a floor so nobody makes less than they would to get into the middle class. The floor is set at $48,000 and change. So no one goes below that as we set the floor. In addition to all of that, because we know that a key element of veteran well-being is having purpose. We want to encourage folks to be active, to wake up every morning knowing what they are going to do. We're going to allow veterans to make $20,000 without offsets, to encourage them to start something. So they'll be able to make another $20,000 without offsets. So all of those things together, and sorry, that whole package is pegged at 90% of pre-release income. 90% of pre-release gross income with a floor of $48,000. So that is the program. In addition to that, because of the mandate promise to make sure that survivors of veterans have a higher level of support, if indeed the veteran passes away before the age of 65 as a result of their service, the surviving spouse will continue on at that 90% of pre-release income until the veteran would have turned 65 years old, at which point the income replacement benefit will go to 70%, whereas in the old scheme it was 50%. And again, the rest of the details in that package there, so I won't go into much more detail there. I also just want to kind of highlight that this pain and suffering compensation coming, the Pension for Life program coming online next year is on top of the stuff that we just launched this past April. So I want to highlight the importance of the education and training benefit. That if you have at least 6 years of service, then you qualify and you're healthy. Okay, this is on top of, if you're medically released, today through voc rehab, through the department, you can get up to $78,000 for vocational rehabilitation. And that is for medically releasing folks, or folks who need the support as a result of an injury. On top of that, for the first time since World War II, we're bringing in an education and training benefit for folks who are healthy. And if actually you did have a medical release, you can stack this on top of the vocational rehabilitation money as well. So this is, for those folks who have 6 years of service, $40,000 for tuition, for books, and living expenses. For education, whether you want to go to college or university or whatever, and if you're like me, you joined the Army because you hated school, there's an amount of $5,000 if you want to learn a hobby, if you want to go off and learn how to be an entrepreneur, if you want to go off and come up with some kind of skill or hobby that will give you focus. Okay, and we're doing that all digitally, and we've approved over 1,000 folks already in just a few months. If you have 12 years of service, then you are eligible for up to $80,000. Again, for 4 years of college or university. And in addition to that, you have 10 years to complete the program. So there's no rush to the door in order to get this all done. On top of that, the Career Transition Service, we've hired a company that has been doing workman's compensation stuff in order to not only provide career counseling, but to land folks in jobs. And we have corporate Canada reach out to this company, so we actually give the folks counseling, land them in jobs. The other thing that's come online, and I know we have folks here from the MFRC, is now those veterans who released from the Canadian Armed Forces with medical release have access to all 32 military family resource centers across the country open-ended, and a whole bunch of other things. So just to say, as we're moving forward on each one of those mandate tasks that Minister has. Sir.
I mean, the education and training that is a huge. I mean, 6 years of service, $40,000 to go to university, college, anywhere you want. 12 years of service, $80,000. That is a game changer for a lot of people who are going through transition. So we're going to take questions. And before we do, I'm just going to anticipate a few, because there are some that we get a lot, and let's go through a couple of them. Namely, why is it taking until April 1st? It's taking until April 1st because Pension for Life is $3.6 billion. It's a big amount of money. So obviously, it has to go through the whole legislative process. It's got to go through the Treasury Board. It's also got to go to committees. So all that stuff's got to happen. Well, I'll tell you one of the real reasons too. I want to make sure that we iron out all the kinks. Because as many people know, and I certainly know, as the MP for St. John South Mount Pearl, the number one issue in St. John South Mount Pearl for a lot of my constituents is Phoenix. Phoenix. So if we're going to be putting out a new payroll system,
yeah,
you know where I'm going.
We'll be able to food bank.
We want to make sure that we iron out all the kinks. It's complicated, right? Because as Walt also pointed out, it's retrospective. So those people who have received lump sums, 2006 on, Pension for Life applies to them. We just subtract the lump sum amount. That's math, and algorithms and variables, et cetera, et cetera. We want to make sure we get it right. So we're taking our time with it, and it won't affect anybody in terms of the amount of money you get. Again, because you're on back. So just want to make sure that we get it right. People have asked, at what age does PFL end? So the truth in this case isn't advertising. It's Pension for Life. However, there was a rumor going around on social media too about women receiving less. No. No. Women will not receive less. Absolutely not. Let me see. I mean, there's a few that we've received a lot. I'm not going to read out any. I mean, other than to say, I was just going to get right to the questions. Other than to say, look, there was a simplicity, and I can understand why some people are still kind of drawn to the pension. 1990, because it was simple. It's simple. I will just say, and I know this now as a freshman member of Parliament, that in 2005, every single member of Parliament agreed that the Pension Act had to change. Every single one. That never happens. The Pension Act wasn't working. It wasn't getting people well. People didn't feel they were able to get back to work easily, and the focus wasn't on vocational rehabilitation. So we're taking Pension for Life, and as Walt said, we're taking some of the best parts of the Pension Act, and we're marrying it together with vocational rehabilitation. And at the center of it are a few things.
PTSD, and the fact that we know that 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road we can take hold. And if you're at work and things are good, and all of a sudden it takes hold, we want to be able to move you over to get vocational rehabilitation, to get well. And we know that 80% of the time it works, we can get you well. But we want you to be rid of the anxiety of financial security for you and your family. Concentrate on getting well. When you're able to go back to work, we're able to put you back. So we need that kind of flexibility built into the system. We needed to make sure that for those that could work, you had incentive to work. Because for a lot of people, not for everybody, but for a lot of people, you can't beat a job. You can't beat purposeful work. And for those who, because they have physical injuries or mental injuries, and they can't go back to work, we got your back. We'll look after you. And that's the system we wanted to create. And it's a highly individualized system sometimes. We can do that now, right? We can do that. It's not like the Pension Act of 100 years ago. We can make it more individualized, make you well. So I can understand politicians, it's easier for me to stand up here and give simple answers. It's not as simple. And that's why we like speaking to people one-on-one. That's why we like speaking in rooms like this. Because we can answer more detailed questions. Because we're trying to come up with a system that works for people. It gets them well. It gets them well. Okay. So how are we doing the questions?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so if you have a question, you can ask your questions in English or French. Vous avez des questions, vous pouvez les poser en anglais ou en français. We ask that you raise your hand, provide your name, and someone with a mic, Sarah, Jessica, or Julie, will go and give you the mic so that everyone can hear your question. So we'll start there with yes, it's working.
So I'd like to first say thank you for the education benefit. Somebody for me who's 30 years in is really not doing much with that is at $80,000. So I don't think I'm going to go back to university. However, my son in 2 years is going to be heading off to university. And I was wondering if there's a way that he transferred off to very needy kids that are getting ready to go to university. Or take the burden off me, live on pension now, save them off to university.
One of the ideas that we tossed around, we could not get through. It is only applying to the veteran. Only in the case whereby the veteran is unable to attend local rehab. So education and training benefit, again, is for those veterans who are eligible. Break, local rehab. If the veteran cannot go through vocational rehab, if they're qualified for vocational rehab and they cannot go through, the idea here is to ensure financial security for the family, that voc rehab can be transferred to the partner or spouse.
But Joe, to me, that's something that we'd like to see. So we're here, we listen. We're here. Right now, I think it's a good first step. We're just rolling this out now. It just started April 1st. Like I said, we've almost got close to 1,000 veterans who signed up for it. I should know too, is going out without any backlog or delay. And I know that's, I'll be honest, I think it's the most frustrating thing that we hear when we do these town halls, the wait times. Let me talk about that just briefly, because it is something that affects a lot of people. When Walt, after I got sworn in, Walt brought me to Charlottetown. As many of you know, I'm the only minister whose government headquarters is not in Ottawa, it's Charlottetown. And we had about 500-600 people in the atrium there. What I said to them was, these are the frontline workers a lot of you deal with. What I said to them was, I got your back. Make decisions. Be compassionate. Give the benefit of the doubt to the veteran and the family member who's on the other end of the line. And I'll give you an example. The example I use with bath rats. Somebody calls up and they need a bath rat. And, they're of a certain age or in a certain condition, whatever. Give them the bath rat. don't, necessarily fill out the form and take it up the line and go wait 3 months. Just get in the bath rail. If there's a run on bath rails, I'll defend you in the House of Commons. Right? There's not. So we're trying to bring in just a level of common sense. That means sometimes somebody gets bath rail and they shouldn't have gotten the bath rail. Well, we'll take those chances, right? Because for the most part, more people will be helped. So we're trying to get a culture change going. We're trying to empower our front lines. A lot of good people who work at Veterans Affairs, a lot of good people who have been waiting for the chance to make those decisions themselves. We've hired 475 new frontline workers to make up for those that have been fired over the past number of years. We've reopened 9 of those offices. We opened up another one to get those frontline people working again. And with things like the education training benefit, with the increase in disability and a number of other things, what's happened is even though we've been hiring people as quickly as we can, we've got a whole new level of interest to people. People who are calling in now, people who hadn't before, and our wait times have gone up. So I went to the Minister of Finance in the last budget. I said, we need more money to get over this hump. Now I got $42 million to help us out with those wait times because they're in demand. That's a good thing. I mean, it means that there's more interest, and that's good. But we can't have people waiting, and there's nothing that nothing that bothers us more than people having to wait for the benefits and services that they deserve. They're entitled. Yeah, went off on a tangent.
Yeah. Jim Hackett, sir, Mr. Minister. My question is the math, and I'll use an example that I've asked a ton of my friends about.
Yeah.
Your predecessor came here for the National Legion Convention a couple of years ago,
2 years ago.
and in the works was a top-up to bring the awards up to 2017. And he was asked directly, doing a real simple math, if 100% was $1 and the new 100% was $1.50, are we getting 50 cents if we got 100%? He went, yes. We didn't get it, and nobody could explain the algorithm, what they used, to the number they came out with, which everybody got. So my question is, when this new system is put in place, are there going to be people that are going to be able to explain how you got where you are? Because I spoke to 4 or 5 people, I have friends that did the same thing, and nobody could give us a definitive answer of how they came to the number that they came to. So is there going to be someone in place that's going to be able to explain this to the veterans, exactly how, and make it common sense, make it simple so we can understand it?
I'll let Paul get into the weeds of it, Jim. I just say that's the other reason why we're waiting to go first, to make sure that we got our front line completely up to speed on everything that's going on.
Okay.
That we can put an online calculator on so that you can go on and figure it out for your own reason. You don't want to call somebody right away, but get your head around it yourself.
Yeah, because it was very confusing and frustrating to a lot of people I know, the math that was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jim, just to say that when we did that disability award top-up, a year and a half ago, it was our first go at digitizing the whole thing. And the way it worked out, and I won't go into the detail of the numbers and so on, but our intent is to learn from that experience and also the experience of launching the education training benefit. The Pension for Life will be the 3rd time now we put out a new benefit in a digital way.
Right.
And we want to make sure we go out to folks and tell them exactly what the numbers are before they get it. Because I know a year and a half ago, a lot of my battle buddies were sending me notes saying, hey, Walt, big scam, someone's trying to force $20,000 on me, I shouldn't take it. And I said, okay, don't worry about it, it's us. Trying to force money on you. And we
direct
actually
deposit went through before candidates.
put money in your account and the letter was still in the mail. So we need to go out early, and we're actually trying to do it this fall, this summer, fall, to put out information to all the veterans saying, here's the range at which we're talking about for you, as early as possible.
And the reasons why.
And the reasons why.
Right?
There's a lot of factors. We have to get every factor.
I get it, sir, but,
Yeah.
the last one was
Yeah.
very confusing.
Anything we can do to lessen anxiety, lessen stress, we'll figure out we're going to do it. I mean, even with the new benefits, I mean, you could follow where you are in the process, kind of like Domino's Pizza, right? It's in the oven, it's on the way to the house, that sort of thing. Just so you know, because it's the unknown that can really, get under your skin. So the more information we can give you about where it is in the process, the better. I mean, we're really encouraging people to get MyVac accounts.
which is a, great, and people who are on it, they're getting more information in a timely way. You're told when you can expect, a deposit in your account and that sort of thing. And that's, we're told when no surprises, no waiting, if we need more information from you, you get it right away, so it doesn't delay things, that sort of thing. And in terms of convergence, which is the word we use, in terms of moving from the military life to post-service life, we want to get people, this is where we want to get, when you enlist, you get a MyVac account. So that you're prepared right away. Because one thing I've learned too, mental health, we talk about stigma. The stigma around talking about mental health. In the military, there's also the stigma about leaving. And that adds to it. Because nobody wants to talk about leaving. Right? I mean, on a much smaller level, I didn't want to tell my co-hosts at Canada AM that I was leaving until like a month before. Because it's an intense relationship, much more so in the military. And you don't want to make people feel like you're letting them down. So we think if we can give you a MyVac account right away, and that starts becoming active, you start talking about it a little bit. And it just means that when you go through that change transition, it's not that severe. It's something you're talking about, it's something you're preparing for emotionally, as well as the forms and all that stuff.
General, how you doing? Seamus, my question is regarding your closing comment before you took some questions.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the veterans that will most likely probably not go back to work, and you said that we have your back and don't worry. This "don't worry" thing is a very difficult statement for veterans to hear.
Yeah.
I'm personally in that situation. I'm 18 months out. We just got cut off by CISIP, and I'm to the point now where on a difficult day, I can't hardly get out of bed or wash myself.
Yeah.
So I'm to the point now where do I try to go out and look for a job? What do I do? My case manager says, "Oh, don't worry, Veterans Affairs got your back and you'll be taken care of." Well, when warrants come out, it's kind of a difficult thing for a person to say, "Okay, well, don't worry, Veterans Affairs is going to have my back." But as of March 2019, I'm just wondering, like, how can something be put in paper to say, "Okay, don't worry, you have this time or that time or whatever, there is leeway," you know what I mean? Like, to me, CISIP says that, okay, you're done as 2019, Veterans Affairs saying, "Don't worry, we'll take care of you," but you can't put nothing in writing.
Yeah.
So to me, some person telling me, and it could be you as well as anybody else, my case manager, I'm just not okay with somebody telling me when my family depends on my income right now. How can I say, okay, well, I'm not going to worry? Well, I do worry, and I'm sure a lot of people in my situation.
Yeah, and I'll say this, Robin, you're absolutely right. I will say that aspiration, where I want to be, is you not to worry. Like, that's where I want to be. And I agree with you. Like, words ain't enough. Words are not enough. I want you to feel that because of the actions that we take, and because you got something in writing that shows you where you're going. That's where I want to be. I don't want to worry. It's gut-wrenching. I know. So that's where I want to get to. Now, in terms of your case, particularly, the sooner I can give you assurances on exactly how this is going to play out for you, the better off you are on the mill. And if that's the case, then the better off we are. So that's where we want to get to. So, work with your case manager on it. I don't say those words, but and I won't leave them alone as words. It has to be actions. You need a piece of paper. I get it. This is where you're going to be. That's what we got to work for. Yeah.
And those are all great words, of course, but it still don't give me any reassurance that I'm going to be taken care of.
Well, that's where I want to get to. That's where I want to get to. Yeah. Yeah. And I know. Intentions aren't good enough. What we'll try and do here, as Walt says in a wave top way, is give you a general idea of where we're going and what we want to do and what's going to take effect as of April 1st. And then we want you to sit down with your case manager and we want you to sort this out. And we want you to know exactly where you're going.
me just emphasize a couple of things here. We're not changing eligibility to get into pain and suffering compensation. We're going to use the criteria of the career impact allowance for the additional pain and suffering compensation. And it's the same criteria in terms of getting into the income replacement benefit as currently exists under the earning loss benefit and long-term earning loss benefit. So it's the same thresholds kind of across the board. I also want to emphasize that being active is absolutely key to everybody's health. Okay, waking up every morning with a purpose is like really, really important for well-being. Okay, so I just want to kind of bang that drum really hard, because one of my concerns is some folks have been in the IPSCs and holding kind of pattern so long that they have not been active, they actually stopped doing stuff. And that's the worst thing you can do. And actually to be active all the way through, and that's why we put in this $20,000 without clawback, to incentivize folks to find their mojo again, to find themselves again, to get going again. Because again, we've trained you, we put millions of dollars of training into you. You can do great things. And to encourage you and to rebuild that confidence to go and do stuff. But in terms of the threshold to get in, we're not changing any of those. The other point, just to highlight this, is as the Minister said a few moments ago, we're putting all this stuff into legislation. That's one of the reasons why it takes so long. We first have to go to Parliament, we have to get all this stuff approved, then we have to hire the folks to do this stuff, work up the calculations for $74,000, then we have to get all the IT together to do the algorithm. But that first step, getting it legislation, what it means is the government has a statutory obligation to all veterans. So whether 10,000 show up with a need or 100,000 show up with a need, it doesn't matter. The government is obliged to pay the bill. This is so different from when I was Chief of Defense. I was always worried about how much money we had for bullets and beans and gas and that kind of thing. I never have to worry about that for you. Because whether, we have a few veterans who need support, or all of a sudden we have a mass CAS and an aircraft goes down, I never have to worry about that because the money's always there. The money's always there. It is a statutory obligation by the government of Canada. What I try to do is predict it, to try to stay in the black, and try not to go in the red. So just to highlight again, we're not changing any of the threshold. If your injury is as a result of service, all of these programs apply. If you got hurt, you put the benefit or the request in after 1 April 06. And we have a lot of folks who are both under the Pension Act, again, World War II vets, Korean War vets who may have some disability under the Pension Act, and then they apply for the new Veterans Charter. We're providing them start.
And Logan, the other thing I'd add to, the side benefit of taking 6 different forms and making one income replacement benefit is just, it's 5 less forms. 6 less forms that you have to fill out. Because some people, you freeze. Sometimes having to worry about this stuff. Anxiety overtakes you. And whatever we can do to make life simple and to lower anxiety, we will do it. We will do it.
We have a question here, Mike, and then we have a question there.
And James in the back.
Sir? So Reagan?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We're talking a lot about frustration, talking a lot about, the numbers and so on and so forth. This all sounds fantastic. It all sounded fantastic before. It all sounded fantastic before. I've done it all. I've been Right Force, both reserved for a very long time. I've been injured under the old system. I've been injured under the new system. Not as bad as some, not as bad as a lot. But I've had to go through all the processes. And sir, I'm going to ask one question. Where's the horsepower? And as an adjunct to that, is the horsepower going to be trained to use a living instrument? Because in my dealings with that, the disrespect has come to the point where I won't deal with it. It's as simple as all that. Not going to name names, not going to get into specifics. I walk into a room, the first thing you look at me and go, are you Right Force or Reserve? And my answer is usually, why? Does it affect the level of service I get? And the answer they give me is yes. If you're a reservist, you go over there. If you're Right Force, you come right in, we've got your back. Okay? I've been doing this for longer than a lot of people have been alive. Full time. My choices are mine, I'm not arguing with them. But, where is the horsepower? You've got $42 million to hire people. Are they actually hired? Secondly, Are they going to be trained to deal with the fact that they're dealing with mentally and physically injured people? And when they come out and say, well, no, you have to do this and you have to do that. Our natural reaction as soldiers, sailors, whatever, is to fix things. And when things get in our way, we reach over, we grab them, and we fix them. And that's not the right way to do it. But when somebody comes out and says, well, sir, come on in, have a seat, let's talk to you, let's get all this done, it's a completely different reaction. I had it once. And in all my dealings with them, I've only ever had it once. And as to arranging meetings and one-on-ones and all that, I have not had that experience. So I'm really impressed with everything that's being said. I do not believe a word. I have to see it, and I have to see it on the timeline.
Yeah.
My last, call it problem with the military, took 5 years to solve. Not 5 months, not 6 months, 5 years. It got completed July 31st of this year. It cost me money because I had to hire a lawyer to bully people to do what I did. And I'm asking you, sir, is this going to be the same again, or are you going to be able to say to all of us here that this will not be that way? That's my question.
This will not be. Yeah. What I will say is, you know, and this gets back to what we were talking about earlier. Judges by their actions. I agree with you. I mean, you know, words get floated around. Words get thrown around. It's happened for too long. And I'm an impatient man myself. We've got these new benefits coming out already, career transition, education training benefit. They're real, they're rolling out. People are taking them, people are getting them. Pension for life will come out April 1st. It will. You will judge us based on our actions.
I will.
Yeah, yes, you should. And you know, and in terms of service quality, I mean, all I can say is what I said before. We are empowering the front line. We are hiring people as quickly as we can get them. We're putting $10 billion, real money, past Treasury, $10 billion, the biggest investment that Veterans Affairs has seen in decades. And it is going cheap. It is going to benefits and services for veterans. We are only increasing the number of people who work with us to increase the level of service quality that you get, but it's all to you. And you can hold me by those words.
I just add a couple of things, and Mike, I just want to say first off, if we disrespected you or any veteran, I apologize. Yeah, I'm a senior public servant in the department, and when you see the motto down here, it says care, compassion, respect. The minister has reinforced that the change of culture in the department is all about those 3 words. Our mission is care for you, for all veterans and their families. That's our mission. That's what we do, care. If we have to default in how we make a decision, we want to default to compassion. Okay, and that is giving the veteran the benefit of the doubt. We're operationalizing it with the word compassion. And the last word is key there, it's respect. We don't push back on a veteran, we don't push back on a wounded soldier, sailor, airman, or woman. We don't push back on a grieving family member. We just don't do that. And so if it's happened, I apologize. But I also want to say to you that last year, last March of 2017, we did the first survey of veterans in 7 years. And we didn't do it. We asked Statistics Canada to do a survey. Right. So that survey, just so you know, went out 6 months after they do it. Statistics Canada does it. They have to disclose it to the public. And so it went out and was publicly disclosed in September. 3 stats that I just kind of want to highlight. 93% of veterans believe that they have been respected by the department. 81% of veterans are either satisfied or very satisfied. 78% of veterans believe that the employees of Veterans Affairs exceeded expectations. Now we're going to keep working on that percentage that we messed up because it happens. But I just want to say I apologize if anyone's pushed back because that is not what we're doing. We want to make sure that we are supporting folks across the board. The other piece that's really important, I was meeting with Harold. Harold, show up your hand there. Harold runs the office here in St. John's, and so I was with Harold and the great employees of the department today. Half of the room we've hired in the last couple of years. Half of the room we've hired in the last couple of years. What's amazing is those folks that we hired decades ago, and I handed out a coin to a lady who's worked with us for over 30 years. We didn't provide training. We didn't provide training. We gave folks kind of a one-day little module to kind of look up. They shadowed another employee for a day, and they did one home visit for a veteran, and it was good luck. So again, the minister and the government have instituted boot camp. So the minister said, we've hired over 470 odd employees. We're putting them through a schoolhouse. Okay, it's not quite like basic was in Cornwallis and St. John. There is no 10-foot wall. But we're putting everyone through a training program. And in addition to that, we're taking those folks who've been with us for a few years, and we're bringing back for what we remember as refresher training in order to get all this stuff. But the key piece of it is this culture of care, compassion, and respect that is so important. And we're walking that talk.
Thanks.
So, took me a lot to get here. Over medication, whatever. Anyway, so, are you going to be able to transfer, okay, let's backtrack here. All right, I'm a single parent. I had him for 5 years by myself. He's been away from me for 19 days. He is now disabled at 17 years old. He will probably be with me for the rest of my life. Okay? Is there any way to transfer the spousal benefits? Because I'm never getting another spouse because I'm still going through a divorce $100,000 later. Is there any way to transfer that from me, because I don't have a spouse, to him? You know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
To a child.
Yeah, to a child. Because he's going to be with me forever, probably. So, and also,
Are you talking about your survivor benefit, James, or what are you talking about?
like the education benefits, any benefits that a spouse would get transferred to him, because I'm never getting another spouse. I'm going to stay single forever. You know what I mean?
The one benefit that's transferable that's come online is the career transition benefit.
Okay.
The education training benefit, as Joe mentioned, or asked here, we don't have that. Again, what I said is under the VOC rehab program, if you're medically released on vocational rehab, that amount can transfer to a spouse, but only to a spouse, but only if the veteran cannot go through. But the career transition benefit, which is again all the career counseling and job placement, that is for families too. I think correct me if I'm wrong here in the back, but that benefit is also for family members.
Okay. And another thing, remember our one-to-one that we were supposed to have? Remember you said let's get a one-to-one, Ruth, when you did your open house? I would still appreciate that, because me not getting return, it was a level of disrespect by you totally say, yeah, I'm just going to ignore you, and say, we're not going to have a one-to-one face-to-face.
No, I wasn't paying attention.
Okay, because that was very disrespectful.
Yeah.
And actually, at the point, the coin that Mr. Nintinchuk, at the time of CDS, gave me on the rank ceremony as I was escort duty for Sergeant Murray Boudreaux, I shot a hole in it, because I've been lied to by the military, and you disrespected me by saying that we'd have a meeting and talk, but we didn't. So, that's
James,
it.
we have one that day. My door is always open for you to arrange whatever you want.
I know I tried to talk to Kenny. Anyway, I just got basically pushed off to the side.
No, I was there.
And it was,
I've been happy.
you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, happy to meet with you anytime.
okay, perfect, thank you.
If you want me to replace that coin, I don't have any more CDS coins, but I got a back coin. Okay? I remember you doing that job, and I appreciate you doing that job.
Cool.
Question here.
Matt Edwards, I'm a reservist veteran, and I'd like to follow up on Logan's question, because you mentioned And he mentioned the SISIP program. Now, the SISIP program is currently the first payer on that release. So a person like Logan would get SISIP and then earn lots of it later. But he shouldn't have to worry because, I mean, basically the LD is 90%. So if he's getting both, he shouldn't have to worry, and you guys should be probably reassuring of that. But I also used to be a tax consultant. So one of the key things that I talked to your staff about and I want to get fixed is the tax-free status for our veterans benefit under the Income Tax Act, Section 81(1)D, which says a service pension for a person who is disabled in service is exempt from taxes. So the SISIP program is currently taxed, and it probably shouldn't be because when the person is being medically released because they were hurt in service and you guys made it the first payer, then it shouldn't be taxed. So that's one thing that I'm hoping the government will fix, and if it doesn't fix, we'll take care of it. But according to the pension for life stuff, they make some of the things tax-free in the future. But they probably should have been tax-free at the beginning of 2006. Now, one other thing I was going to ask you about besides the tax-free status, because I asked Mr. Hare about that several years ago, and he gave me some kind of crap answer that he was here for me, and I don't know if I've had a chance to talk to him, because I kind of crashed it, he was giving me some accommodations. So the staff told me I could meet him before the meeting, so I didn't have time to formulate a good question. So I asked him for a callback, why does the earnings loss benefit and the career impact loss and whatever be taxed when damages in the common law are tax-free, or workers' compensation is tax-free, and the pension act is tax-free. So why does the government think that a disabled service veteran should have to pay taxes on the damages they get, whether it's a lump sum or a monthly payment? What makes a soldier less valuable to Canada than you want to tax them, whether in the civilian side doesn't get taxed? Now, I'll leave you with that one, but the $20,000 exemption you're calling it for the clawback. Now, clawbacks, you and I spoke several months ago about the clawbacks, and I gave you a lot of concerns that I have where I think they're unlawful. In the meantime, though, where did the figure come from, $20,000? Under the goal system, SISIP and ELD, you can make up to 100% of your previous disability salary, and then they would claw back 50% of that amount. So you could have had a really good job after, and you could have made $100,000 a year job, you would have had $50,000 tax-free, or clawback-free, and you're making it sound like $20,000 is a big deal. But it might be a step back if the current law allows you to make 50% over your pre-disability salary, then where did the $20,000 come?
20,000, we looked at all the provinces, and the 20,000 was the most generous of all the provinces in terms of the offsets. So the ability to make up to $20,000 with offsets. So we actually looked at all the provinces and what the practices were.
But the pension had 0 offsets.
Again, looking at the pain and suffering compensation, additional pain and suffering compensation as recognition, because it's recognition, this is not earning loss, it's not long-term disability, it's recognition. And that's why we were able to get it through CRA and finance as a non-taxable allotment or amount of money, as opposed to the income replacement benefit being financial security, and that's where, in fact, CRA indicated therefore it would be taxed.
Alabama doesn't allow damages to be taxed. So if you have economic or non-economic losses, both are tax-free. There isn't taxes on the economic amount.
Right.
So why did Veterans Affairs decide to make it taxable? I suspect in 2006, CRA passed the earned loss benefit in law as a taxable benefit. Because that's internally, just like the retail discount thing happened last year, where the government backed down because CRA decided that it wasn't the politicians, the government, that CRA got ahead of themselves and tried to pass this law to tax the retail salespeople, and therefore, they backed down.
So Matt, again, using your philosophy, again, that's why the pain and suffering compensation, additional pain and suffering compensation are recognition awards, so to speak, to use that legal word, and that's why it's non-taxed, as opposed to those veterans who require economic stability.
Well, recall, I used to work for CRA, and related to the earlier salary as a percentage of income. So the earnings offset is a percentage of income, and it's figured out of 10. Economic is figured out of 10.
It's only to those who need it as opposed to the pain and suffering is for everybody in the award side of the ledger.
Now we're talking about damages in the whole. So if you walk across the street and got hit by a car, the person who injured you pays you damages because you were helped before. Now, if the government of Canada has to pay damages to the soldier who was injured in combat, that should be tax-free because it's not income, it's replacement of the obligation.
And that I agree with you. That's on that tax-free side of the ledger. For those veterans who, as a result of their injuries, need support, the income replacement is taxed by virtue of CRA's decision.
But CRA doesn't decide. CRA is the executive.
Matt, I think it's fair to say we may not get, I
Politician.
don't know if we'll be able
We'll look
to.
into it, like I said, on top of your staff.
Good,
And we'll look forward to you guys on this.
good, okay.
Okay, we had a question over here, and I think we had another, we'll take the one at the back of the room, the gentleman with the glasses. Oh, Elaine?
You can do it first, you know.
Jay over here.
Okay, and there was another gentleman, right there.
Yeah, I'm really nice. Because I could be nice sometimes. I'm not always an asshole.
Hi, I'm Elaine. I was retired home after 28 years. I'm a physician assistant, not recognized and implemented. So that whole career is just a shock for me. The $5,000 that we get, I've done 28 years, so am I entitled to that once? Or am I entitled to that a couple of times? And in saying that, if I do a course, which there's quite a few not offered in Newfoundland, and you would know, you would have to agree, and I have to go to Halifax or Ontario, are my flights, or is my transport to go to that, is it just the education portion covered, or?
Preserve the education training that.
Yes. So that $5,000 is that a one-time deal? Or, and is any of, I'm asking him, is any of the travel to that area covered? Or is it a part of that $5,000 that you get either once or a couple of times?
So if you've got 6 years,
I've got 28, I'm asking for me.
you've got 28.
Yes.
Okay.
Full right course.
Okay, so 28, then you're full amount.
Yeah, so the full $5,000 as a grant.
Once.
So it just once.
Because I'm not going back to university because I'm not medically fit to go back to university. So I don't even have the opportunity to get that 80,000. I'm in Newfoundland, so my degree of a Bachelor of Science doesn't get recognized here, so I can't work as a physician assistant here. So if I wanted to do a few other courses that I can probably still work within my medical unit, but they're out of that province, and I only have $5,000, that's unfair. I've given 28 years of my life to this service and come back as a different person, and now I've given $5,000 grant.
So let me just turn it back a little bit. For any person who releases medically, they are able to get up to $78,000 for vocational rehabilitation. So in addition to that, for someone over 12 years of service, $80,000 for university courses or college courses. They have up to 10 years to complete the program, and it's $80,000, $20,000 over 4 years. So, but if it's university accredited courses, then you could go into that.
Absolutely.
The $5,000 is for if you want to do hobbies, if you want to get
Hobby, so that's what I'm trying to ask you, sir. Just one simple question.
$5,000.
$5,000.
Right.
That's just, don't you agree, sir? Like, that is so unfair. And I had to give up everything, and I'm probably not just one of the, probably many. So why does that why can't I still have a limit of $80,000 and I can take it every $5,000 chunks if it still pertains to a certain path? Not if I'm going this path to this path to this path, but if it pertains to a certain road that I want to take, why am I limited to $5,000?
So the $80,000 pertains, if you go into the ESDC, the Employment Social Development Department, they show all of the educational institutions in the country for whom that $40,000 or $80,000 would apply to, because they're accredited courses. So if you want to get accreditation from whatever college, Athabasca College, whatever, As long as it's there.
I understand that, sir. but
And a
I'm-
number of them you can do online.
But I'm understanding, sir, if I can't commit myself to long courses, if you want to know all my medical history, I can give it to you, but I'm not. I'm just asking that one $5,000 grant given to people that can't commit themselves to long courses
Yeah.
because of medical issues.
Yeah.
Why can that change? I'm single, I have no one else to give my benefits to, so if I die tomorrow, you get everything that I have.
Yeah.
But why can't I get training just like everyone else? Why is it limited?
Elaine, you can do it over 10 years too. You've got 10 years, so you
To
can do it
spend
part-time.
$5,000?
But Elaine, can I just say that,
No, sir, it's not, you're not getting right to my answer.
Okay.
Your answer was, I get $5,000, and I'm just asking,
Yeah.
can you relook at that, please?
Sure.
Because right now, I'm not doing university courses, I can't do it.
Yeah.
There's small courses in the industry that I can be in, but there are few, there's few. And they're more than $5,000 if I do a few. And all I want is to say, will you please look into it?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I've heard everything you said, sir, you said it all at the beginning, and I understand that. That's all I want.
We're here.
Thank you. Okay.
So can I trust you that you'll be looked into?
Yes.
Gentlemen here.
Jay Cunningham, sir. Thanks for the opportunity to ask a question. My question is kind of similar to timeframes. So the priority hiring process to get a job in the federal public service. So currently, you have 5 years to access that program from release. So if you take a soldier, sailor, airman, airwoman who's injured, who's rehabbing,